Well, joining me now is DJ, author and chairman of the British Plaque Trust, Mike Reed. Mike, welcome to Talking Pints.
Look at you, look. You got your own studio. This is wonderful. What have you done?
Well, it's great. We turn it into a pub for this part of the show, and it kind of works, because rather than it being an interview, it's a conversation. And that, I think, is the fun part of it.
And look at me, lightweight shandy.
Well, that's all right.
Lightweight.
Cheers. We don't force our guests to drink. It's up to them, but I like one.
That's okay.
Mike, I think, it was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, Radio 1, the birth of Radio 1, it became this phenomenon. The Radio 1 roadshow that went out round the country, and I went to a couple of Radio 1 roadshows, Top of the Pops, which, before the internet and everything else, was the kind of must-watch programme for, vast numbers.
Yeah, they were. That was the thing then. There wasn't so much choice, so there were big numbers. A roadshow, you get 20, 25, 30,000 people turning up to watch a radio show.
Yeah.
That's like having a puppet on the radio, really. It was extraordinary. But it was great fun. And there were big ratings. Saturday morning was 10 million, Pop Quiz was 10 million, Top of the Pops 15, 16 million, but, there wasn't the choice, and it has to be fair, but, they were big programmes.
Yeah, they were. You were almost like a rock star yourself, in a way. You were.
I'd like to think so. You're very flattering.
But you were, because, these were massive audiences watching it. What was the most fun? Was the roadshow, Top of the Pops? What was the most fun to do?
Oh, I love the roadshows. I remember my mother calling me up and she said, "You love it, don't you? Roof down, tennis racket guitar in the back, going from town to town, showing off and getting paid for it." And I said, "Well, it doesn't sound too bad to me." That was great fun. You do work hard, though. It doesn't just happen. You know this. I do breakfast shows now and the Heritage Chart show. You have to roll your sleeves up and work. It doesn't just happen. Like anything, like opening a shop, opening a business, you have to put some effort into it. It doesn't just roll along of its own accord.
But Radio 1 itself, it was just massive, wasn't it? Before commercial radio had really kicked off.
It was. I thought I was just having a good time, Nigel, but I realised latterly I learned stuff. I didn't realise I was. You learn maybe the legalities, you learn what to say, what not to say, how to do it. And certainly, if you're on a roadshow, it's a three-part thing. It's teeing up the gag, playing a record, hitting, that's the gag, and then the denouement. So it was a three-parter. But you couldn't exclude people at home. The whole thing was, it's so easy to play to a crowd there when they're in front of you, but you mustn't forget the 10 million people at home. Yeah. They have to be included.
And you finished up as the controller. You were in charge. You were the boss.
I don't think so.
You were in a very senior position at Radio, weren't you? And involved in a very controversial decision. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, the song Relax.
Yeah.
And you were suddenly in the middle of what became a very big national news story.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Paul Morley, the Frankie's manager, quite sensibly, PR-wise...
Because you you wanted to ban the record, yeah?
No, the BBC banned the record. I was employed by the BBC, so they Yeah. They banned the record.
Oh, no, it was Mike Reed that decided.
Well, that's the PR story, but I rolled with it. That's absolutely fine. What it was, my producer got home and he saw the video being... His two daughters were rewinding the video, which was graphic. Let's say, I won't go into detail, but it was graphic. And he came back to me, he said, "We can't be anywhere near this. Have you seen the video?" And Paul Morley apparently got the director, who I met years later in Cannes, who said, "I'm sorry, this is my fault. I was told to do it for the Tube." And then their manager took it to children's TV, Top of the Pops, Radio 1, very cleverly. But no, I think it was a great record. I did the voiceover for their next album and stuff like that.
So you didn't fall out with them as people at all?
No, not at all. No, in fact, they went on to make Two Tribes, which I thought was even better. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, which I absolutely loved. There was some graphic stuff on the back of the 12-inch. How it emanated really was on Wednesday morning we used to do the chart. And there was never enough time to repeat the chart. And I thought, if I'm going to drop something, and Adrian John, who's on before me, said, "Have you seen this cover?" And it was something really graphic. I went, "Oh, OK." And even years later, Trevor Horn said, "I didn't know they'd done that," So it was clever PR, and why not,
But beyond being a TV presenter and a DJ, I got to know you because you supported the campaign for us to leave the European Union. You felt it very strongly. And I think you took some stick within your own industry for putting your head
Well, as we say, everyone can have their own point of view or their own opinion, whether it's right, whether other people think it's right, whether people think it's wrong. And I've always said that, someone could disagree with somebody, but you defend their right to have an opinion. To rip people apart for an opinion, it's like saying, you support one football team, and your opinion is not going to sway someone else to support your football team, or indeed go to your church. Your religion is your religion, and that's fine. And you accept somebody else as having theirs. That's the tolerant way of doing it. I mean, now, we get people trying to wrestle with the past. And as, Omar Khayyam says, the moving finger right and having Rip moves on. If you try wrestling with race from the past, and we've all created misdemeanors, whichever country it is down the years, you're wrestling with a ghost, and you're never going to win.
Because history is a big thing with you, isn't it? I mean, you write books, the British Plaque Trust. Tell us a bit about, I know that you love history, and you're busy writing books about London right at the moment. Share some of that with us.
Yeah, I'm doing a series of 6 books on 1,000 years of a London street. There aren't too many. When you look at Downing Street, you could just about get away with it. But then again, there's been a great book on prime ministers by Anthony Selsdon. So it would be a book on prime ministers. So maybe you'd leave Downing Street. I did Denmark Street, which is out at the moment. I'm just proofing Cheapside, which is phenomenal history, really. That's been there since Roman times and beyond. And nearly finished Piccadilly, which is a fascinating street. I just love the history anyway, and the history of London. And I'm looking at 3 more streets that might work for 1,000. I've had to stretch Piccadilly a little bit. It doesn't quite stretch back 1,000 years, but it was a trackway, and who knows who went down this trackway. It could have been. So it's a little bit of stretching, but it's great fun and great history, because you're walking through a door, and you're going back through the centuries. You walk through a door, who was here then, and then, and then. It's fascinating.
But it could be, Mike, a lot of these characters you're writing about from the past are those that now many would want to cancel, to remove, are your books going to be covered in warnings?
Everything's covered in a warning now. Life is a warning, isn't it? Beware, you are living. No, they're just, who was there was there. Piccadilly, you had highwaymen, you had Charles Dickens, you had Queen Victoria, you had all the people living at Albany, who are an extraordinary bunch of characters. It's the people that were there. With Denmark Street, you have people like Zoffany, the artist whose paintings now sell for 10, 12, 15 million maybe, came over and was painting clocks for a few pennies in Denmark Street. And Lord Wharton, who owned the land that the street was built on, wrote the words for Lily Bolero. So it's always been musical. If you go back to 1100, Queen Matilda created a leper hospital there. And I think her minstrel Rahir, who built St Bartholomew's, of course, who had the vision, played there. So it's been musical for nearly 1,000 years, which is interesting.
And the British Plaque Trust, again, history. You're wanting to bring or recognise history from the past.
Yeah, it's recognising people who can made a unique contribution to the country in one way or another, in science, medicine, sport, whatever it is, politics, whatever it is. It has to be something unique, or a unique event, a unique moment, a unique achievement. And that's good. Yeah, a lot of people come through and say, what about so-and-so? And we weigh it up and have a look at it. And sometimes I spend a day going and looking at a house and another house. Is this going to work? Some people might want a plaque. Some people might not. They always say, will it add to the value of the house? And am I responsible for it?
So what sort of people have you brought to life with this?
Oh, gosh. All sorts. We did, BBC asked me for BBC Music Day 3 years ago, have you got any ideas? And I said, well, we're low on musical people. So we formed 40 committees around the country, and we had a national committee, and I wrote about 30,000 words for all the BBC local stations and said, OK, read your bit out on air.
Yep.
People will come up with other ideas. I said, you come up with your top 3 and send it to us as the national committee, and we'll do it. So we did it all on the BBC Music Day, that one, which was...
you're very, very busy, you're very absorbed, but you're also, Mike, you're someone that cares a lot about politics and the country and the way in which it's run. And, you've been involved with the Conservative Party, been involved with me, with UKIP, etc. How's Boris Johnson doing?
It's difficult to know. I look at it because I'm not as involved as you, obviously. I look at it from the point of view of what I'm doing. And one of the main things I do is writing songs. And songwriters are having a really, really, really hard time at the moment. They're up against the YouTubes. Now, YouTube, in the second quarter this year, made $7 billion. In the second quarter. That's nearly $30 billion in a year. are around 30 billion in a year. The songwriters are getting nothing.
Yeah.
If you want to show somebody your song, you've got to wade through 2 ads for which they're getting paid. The songwriters are getting next to nothing. Our songwriters are really, really suffering. The record companies will always tell you that it's buoyant, and it's buoyant because they are the giant whale that's opening its mouth and swallowing a hell of a lot of plankton. The smaller guys can't get that much plankton
What
in.
can Boris do about that?
Well, I think you could be stronger on... It's difficult whether he can do anything, but there is a European copyright directive, which I think really sometimes they play hardball because it's like, well, if you don't want to play with us, we won't play with you. So they can play hardball. If they moved that directive and organised it properly, it would be much easier for our musicians, our songwriters. But it's very difficult because they're tied in with the Googles, the YouTubes, the big boys. It's David and Goliath. Until somebody has a slingshot that's going to work, then it's a tricky one for our musicians and our songwriters. They're really, really struggling. You know, and I think if someone was stronger about the directive. How you do that, I don't know how you tackle.
But we're Brexit Britain. We can make our own decisions now, can't we?
Well, somebody should be strong and tough about it, and I'm sure they have been. I mean, they've been to European commissions, and our people have been there representing that. You know, it's difficult. Again, it's difficult to wrestle with someone that doesn't want to wrestle, and it potters on in its own way. I don't think they've taken the directive and made a point of actually following it to the letter of the law. So, of course, our musicians and writers are suffering from that point of view. But I say, it's very difficult. You get the big boys, the Googles, in the pocket of the politicians and the YouTubes. You know, how do you get around that?
No, very difficult. And finally, Mike, tell us about the Heritage Charts.
Oh, the Heritage Chart. Yeah, well, a year ago, a lot of the artists said to me, we're not getting a fair crack of the whip on radio, our songs. We're still making some of the best music we've ever made, but we're not getting played on the radio. So I thought, OK, we'll start the Heritage Chart. And now we have the website up, people can vote. It's an innovative thing because before that was just sales, which became streaming, which challenged the heritage artists. And now we get every week votes from over 80 countries around the world. And then the chart goes out on a Sunday, and it goes out around the world now, so it's building. But it's great for heritage artists because they are still making and still writing great music, but were feeling very, very frustrated.
And your favourite musical artist of all time?
My favourite singer of all time, I think, probably Scott Walker.
OK. Mike Reed, thank you for joining me on Talking Pints.
Cheers.
Very good. Cheers.